So the most recent weekly crash report shows that more than 100 persons have been killed on the roads during curfew hours since the start of the year. To bring more awareness to this troubling issue, our acting director of the Road Safety Unit in the Ministry of Transport and Works, Deidre Hudson Sinclair, and Assistant Commissioner of Police, Gary McKenzie of the Public Safety and Traffic Enforcement Branch. Good morning to you both. Welcome to Smile Jamaica. I hope you both are okay.
Morning.
Good morning to you, Neville and Simone,
Morning.
and your watchers.
Wow, more than 100 during curfew hours. Deputy Superintendent, let me start with you, sir. ACP, start with you. Tell me about that.
Right, so we have recorded just over 100 fatalities, that is road deaths, during the curfew hours. Certainly not something that we bargained for. We expect that there would be less traffic, so there would be no need to rush. Unfortunately, what we have seen is that a number of persons have found reason to drive at excessive speeds because we have recognized that excessive speeding contributes to most of those crashes. In addition, we expect only essential services workers to be on the road. Unfortunately, that is not the case. We have seen where some of the road deaths, the category of road users are persons who are really not supposed to be on the road. So we have to step up our vigilance. We have been doing that. And hopefully we will see that there will be fewer persons dying on our roads during this time.
ACP, I mean, how stretched are your people in being able to kind of have a presence on the road and monitor during this time? A part of the issue, you know, sometimes we see police, we tend to do a little better, but your officers are stretched dealing with other things now. So has that contributed to kind of like the lack of observing of the rules of the road during this time?
Well, I have to say that you are right, that there are multiple issues that we have to deal with. We have to enforce the Disaster Risk Management Act. There are other issues of violence that we have to curtail. However, it is our responsibility to ensure that persons travel safely. That is those who, well, everyone, but more so, we need to ensure that the persons who are supposed to be on the roadways, that they are there. So I wouldn't say that we are lacking in terms of our observation, but of course, there are multiple issues that we have to deal with.
Yeah. Mrs. Hudson Sinclair, I read that there are hot spots there, that there are these areas where most accidents occur for some strange reason. Is this where we're having these accidents, or this is widespread?
This is widespread, Neville. Unfortunately, it goes across the island, but you know, we recognize that there are particular places, I wouldn't necessarily call them hotspot, but we notice there's an uptick, especially in, you know, fatalities. So take, for instance, you noted the curfew hours, and we recognize that motorcyclists represent the large margin of, you know, of fatalities overall, but during curfew hours, we notice particularly they represent 36% of those fatalities, and they're happening in the western region, St. James, and also in St. Catherine, north and south. So, you know, we wouldn't necessarily call them hotspots. However, we recognize the frequency and the culture in those particular parishes and certain areas, recognize a culture of where persons to go out and, you know, drive on the roads, ride on the roads unnecessarily, and unfortunately find themselves in circumstances where, you know, they've met in a crash and have had a fatality. And that can be said for private motor vehicle passengers and motorists, drivers as well. Because as part of curfew hours, when we look at the data, we recognize there are another 20% in terms of the fatalities during this particular time. So we really want to appeal to our, you know, to everyone, to all our citizens, whether you drive or walk, the resources that are, you know, being spent for persons in hospital, you know, they're finite. And that, you know, curfew hours are meant to protect us, and we really want to engage persons in actually adhering to those rules.
Okay.
Tell me about the black spots that you know, because you say most of the accidents are happening on black spots. What's a black spot?
Well, a black spot is where we recognize a lot a certain number of crashes year on year, and we're looking at over 3 or 4 crashes on a particular roadway in a particular area. So we noticed that they're spread across a network. So we wouldn't want to call a spot because they're not happening in a specific, let's say, junction, but we recognize there are particular roadways, there's frequency, the amount of fatalities happening on those roadways, we call them a hot spot. Now, we do have some general ones in terms of, Braca Main Road, but we're doing, the NWA, other agencies are, trying to maintain those spots. And we have a list of areas that the police, T-Step, and myself, we have looked at and seen how best we can engage other entities in maintaining those particular roadways, making them safer to prevent crashes.
And what are some of those areas, Deidre, just so we have them top of mind?
Well, we know that we have the Braca Main Road. We had, we have look at Palosados. We can look at, Bustamante Highway. So those were our traditional.
It's smooth stretches of road where people feel like them can just open up, as Nev would say, is a nylon road.
Yep.
Right?
Right. And
okay.
what you realize about some of those roadways is that although they're smooth, we recognize there's junctions where there's a lot of persons that do business on that roadway. So we have a lot of key junctions coming off of the roadways, persons are entering them. So we recognize that those are issues. Also, we can even look at certain aspects of the highway. They're smooth road. We had fatalities on our, on the high 4 road as well, where persons have died, So, we have to recognize that. I don't want anybody to start thinking about hot spots, that particular, because basically we have to recognize that all of our roads, we really need to be engaging and driving carefully and practice defensive driving wherever we are, because we recognize that there's injuries also. We have to focus on fatalities, but there are injuries happening. Persons who are paralyzed, who have, can't walk again, persons who have significant injuries, and this is happening all across our network. So we want to really ask persons to drive carefully.
Yeah. SCP, we're talking about fatalities, and obviously you can't prosecute someone who lost their lives, but usually there's a cause for these accidents. Usually it's dangerous driving, careless driving. Can you figure out what happened? Are you prosecuting anyone? Is anyone going to jail because they hurt people on the road?
Well, you're right, Neville. We are able to ascertain the causes of most of these crashes. We have, for example, I had mentioned before, drivers driving at excessive speeds. We have drivers failing to keep to the left of the roadway. We have improper overtaking and some drivers turning without due care. We have seen where over 100 motorcyclists have died in general, and during the curfew hours, 28 of them. And we recognize that when they die, then of course you can't prosecute. And so there's a challenge with that. We see where private motor car drivers as well are dying, and sometimes it is as a result of their error. So driving with seat belts, it is something that we have to be enforcing because we recognize that it's a problem. So those are the main causes. We do make some prosecutions. Persons have been taken before the court. Of course, it is usually sometimes a very tall order. Sometimes persons are injured. Those persons who are culpable and so on. But we continue to enforce as much as possible. We have issued close to 40,000 speeding tickets. We have issued over 350,000 traffic tickets to road users that have breached the road traffic law. And so it is a matter of managing, educating, and enforcing and improving our road environment as we go forward.
Okay. The Road Traffic Act will help?
It definitely will. Of course, it will improve, certainly, fines. It will address some of the offenses that we believe should be there and where motorists should actually have their licenses suspended and so on. So it will definitely improve.
Deidre, where are we now in terms of people who've lost their lives as opposed to prior year? How are we looking as we head to end of year?
Sorry, go ahead, Mrs.
Yes,
House.
Deirdre.
All right, so far we've lost 338 persons. That's a 4% increase in terms of fatalities at this point this year. So that's unfortunate. And if we continue this trajectory, we more than likely will pass 400 fatalities for the year.
Which is what we do not want.
Wow.
So, folks, can we just try our best to do what we know we ought to be doing? Stay off the roads on no movement days. Stay off the roads during lockdowns, because we cannot afford. We're losing enough Jamaicans from COVID. We don't need to be losing Jamaicans on the road as well.
Yep.
You know, especially on days when we're not supposed to be out there.
And if you're on the road, do what you're supposed to do. Heed the road code. Drive sensibly. Just look after yourself. Thank you so much, both of you. Look after yourselves. God bless you both, and stay safe. Acting
You're
Director.
most welcome. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, man. Acting Director of the Road Safety Unit in the Ministry of Transport and Works, Deirdre Hudson Sinclair, and from the Public Safety and Traffic Enforcement Branch, Assistant Commissioner of Police, Gira McKenzie.
All right.